I haven't done anything on the guards tonight. I came home and instead have been playing around with Riley bits and pieces. I was getting overexcited that I actually had enough bits to assemble a clutch, but it turns out that I don't. I have been cleaning pieces up and trying to figure out how they go together and which bits go with what. And it turns out I can't assemble one yet because I don't have the right parts. So the first thing I can look at is these driven plates with the clutch material on them. What I was hoping is I could take these into the clutch place and get them to have a look at them to tell me if they can reline them. They seem fairly confident that they can. Now, I've got two of these that kind of look different. One's got all the holes drilled in it, of course. I don't think they're actually drilled. I think that's original. But the other difference is this boss part in the middle. They're actually different shapes. You can see this one has a taper on it. And that's important when you get to the this plate, which I think they call this sliding plate. I can't remember what the actual terminology is. But if you imagine this goes up this way, this plate then goes into there. And that boss, because this one doesn't have the bevel, it won't work in this housing. It will rub on the cone here. So I can't use this one. I could use this one, which because of the bevel will actually fit and it doesn't rub. So that's fine. I could use this flywheel with this plate and this cone, and that goes in there. I was looking at these bearings. I sort of cleaned them up and used some rust killing type stuff on them. Not rust killing, but penetrant stuff, and got them all freed up. And there was one ball missing, but I replaced that with a spare and just dimpled it with a punch just to keep it in place, and that seems to have worked. They are fairly worn, but I think they would still work okay. You can see they're covered in muck. That's fine. Those run in those little holes there, the little housings. This plate was missing two of the cups, but I was able to just carefully press those out of one of the other spares I've got and push them into this, so that was all fine. And then I spent some time cleaning up the release bearing. Now it cleaned up fairly well. There is a little bit of pitting on it. The actual bit with the balls turned out fine. It came up okay, and I just sort of wire brushed it with a wire brush on the Dremel. The actual other side of the bearing and the housing there does have some rust pitting and a bit of a track worn in it, so I'm not sure if that's usable or not. And also the holes here aren't circular. I'm guessing that's just wear, and maybe that doesn't matter, or maybe this needs to be welded up and re-drilled. I'm not sure, but this kind of goes in there like that, so that when the clutch is operated and this pulls back, it spins on that bearing. The problem is it doesn't fit this. That won't go on there. It turns out there are two sizes of this. There's this one, which is different. So this one seems to go with that, which you could tell easily with the nut, because the nut goes onto that thread, but there's no way it'll go onto that one. And the problem is I can't use this cone piece because, oh, we've got one here. If you look at this is too big to fit through that. So those don't go together. I need to use these ones because this is the spline that fits the gearbox. So what I need to do, I guess, is find a release bearing that will fit over this. So I'm not sure if it's just a different bearing that goes into this housing or how that works, because you can see it's sort of, the hole might just be big enough for that to fit on if I can get the right sort of bearing. But then also I will need the special nut that goes onto the thread there. So that was all a bit depressing. I did have a couple of easy wins though. I was looking through all the other parts, just seeing what I had, and I did find the nuts that go on the stub axles, and they cleaned up really well. They're fine to reuse. And I also found these bolts, which I'm pretty sure are the bolts that hold the arms to the stub axles, and these are special shouldered bolts, so they're a very tight fit into there. So it was quite good finding those. Although when I look at them, oh yeah, they do seem to be the right length. So if you've got the stub axle and these arms here, which I'm not sure which way up they'll go, something like that, then these bolts should go through there and through there, and I guess there's a castle type nut that goes on the end because there's a hole there for a split pin. So disappointing about the gearbox and the clutch, sorry. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with that. I'll probably put an ad in the local Riley Club magazine and just see if that comes up with anything. I don't think I've ever seen any Riley 9 parts for sale on Trade Me, which is our local eBay equivalent, basically. Which is a shame. The parts just are nowhere near as common as Austin 7 stuff. So I'll see what I can do there. Maybe I'll have to get something from the UK. We'll have to see. But I have started ordering some parts. The reason I had the stub axles and things out was because I want to look at getting the front axle assembled. I'm just standing on my gas hose there. So that's one little job I can do. And there's still lots and lots of pieces to clean up and that sort of thing. I'm probably going to set it up on the springs I have, which are too arched for a Brooklands. The front ones are the right length. I believe the rear ones are the same as well. Just with too much arch in them, but I can use those to get the car set up, and then once everything's sitting on the springs, I can figure out how much they need to be reshaped and shortened, because when you change the shape, of course, the top will get longer, and so the distance between the eyes will get longer. So I'll have to figure that one out when I get to it. So I am trying to make progress. It's just rather slow, as these sort of car projects often are. I should get back onto the wings for the Austin. I'll probably do that tomorrow. I might draw up a paper template tonight of how I want the front guard to look. And this time I'm going to try not using an entire wooden buck. I'm just going to make a former for the side and a former for the top, and I'll see how I go with that.